Hello everyone, in this video we will be talking about how the historic city of Istanbul was built upon seven hills. And more importantly, I'll be sharing with you some fascinating clues regarding how these hills may correspond to the seven classical planets in astrology. Since the early years, when I first began researching this field, I can say that I wasn't able to find any reliable sources on the subject. It was honestly quite surprising because although there are a lot of books or sources, articles written about Seven Hills, there hasn't really been anything exploring the astrological dimension of these hills or their planetary correspondence. So, in a way, we can say that, we are among the first to initiate this line of thought. So, let's explore the core of our topic together. First of all, we already know that the city of Istanbul was established as an eastern extension of Rome, what we call Eastern Rome or Byzantium. And as you may know, Rome itself has also founded upon seven hills. So it's not surprising that this symbolic structure was mirrored in Istanbul. So this idea truly excites me. All of the correspondences I'll be sharing with you between the planets and the seven hills are based entirely on my research and reference materials. This is, of course, a hypothetical structure or hypothetical proposition, we can say, or in other words, a hypothesis. But I'm gonna share with you some ideas. It might actually help turn this idea into a real theory because I'm talking about Ptolemy's work, Ptolemy's system, where he connects each planet, and I believe his system matches perfectly with how the planets could symbolically align with the seven hills of Istanbul. Before we begin, let me introduce myself briefly. I'm Kenan Yasin Bölükbaşı. I've been working professionally as an astrologer since 2013, and I currently serve as European representative of the CIA, Cosmic Intelligence Agency. In fact, I was born and raised in this city, Istanbul. That's why I'm clued upon a lot of things in this regard. Since my childhood, I've visited museums, to my readings to the Ottoman Empire, on the Ottoman Empire. You know that I'm clued upon a lot of things. As you may notice, I'm more drawn to working on locational astrology, also known as astromapping. Because of that, I also wrote another article in a previous issue of Timelords Magazine focusing on Turkish cosmology. In that article, I explored how Turkish cultures traditionally analyze space and how they use directional astrology and how deeply rooted those practices were. Anyone interested can take a look at that article too. And you can see the tent, how tent culture evolved. It's really important because given the Turkish cosmology, the left side represents the feminine energy and the right side represents the masculine energy. It's really interesting. And I even wrote about how symbolic colors were assigned to directions and how important geographical symbolism was in shaping cultural identity. For instance, when we look at modern day Turkey, we can say that we can imagine its four sides, surrounded by four different areas or seas, as we can say that seas. For example, the Mediterranean Sea on the left, the Caspian Sea on the right, and the the Black Sea above and the Red Sea below. And these directions correspond to symbolic colors as well. For example, the red, Red Sea symbolizes the color of red, and the Caspian Sea is regarded as a symbol of blue. and also maybe the Black Sea represents black and white for the west, of course. So today, instead of focusing on this broader cosmology, we will shift our attention to Istanbul and proceed through the lens of Ptolemy's work. Still, for those who are curious, that earlier article is worth reading, guys. On this topic, I also published a book, here, Turkish, Yerin Bilgisi, maybe we can say that in English, the knowledge, the wisdom of the earth, the wisdom of the place, the ground, the knowledge of the ground, knowledge of the place, maybe we can say that. And you can find an English introduction to this book in Timelords Magazine, or more precise, on the website of Cosmic Intelligence Agency. And I'll do my best to translate in English as soon as possible, as much as I can. Now, if you're ready, let's continue. Now, let's take a look together at how the seven hills of Istanbul might be connected with the seven classical planets. As you know, today's Istanbul is a very large city in terms of both population and area. But when we look back through history, we see that Istanbul originally consisted of just a small peninsula. As you can see in the visual here, this peninsula is actually located in a very compact area on the western side of the Bosphorus, in what we call the European side of Istanbul. Today, this is known as the historic peninsula. They plan to build this city upon the seven hills, and I'm quite sure that even during that planning stage, they must have considered the planetary colorations, of course. In ancient times, people gave great importance to aligning the heavens and the earth before establishing a city. This was exactly the suspicion that motivated me to begin this journey. And honestly, the one who initially sparked this suspicion in me was Nicholas Champion, of course. His books have always captivated me. One I especially recommend here is Astrology and Cosmology in the World's Religions. Another valuable work is The Dawn of Astrology, particularly the second titled The Ancient and Classical World. These contain extremely important references and insights. For example, you can see Champion writes here, astrology might not always rest on fixed cosmologies, but rather on shifting cultural perceptions and symbolic systems that reflect the desire to connect heaven and earth. This is such a powerful statement. And I want to share two of my most important sources with you. First is The Age of Sinan, written by Gülru Necipoğlu, which is an incredibly valuable resource. Second is A History of Ottoman Architecture, written by Godfrey Goodwin. It's a beautifully written book filled with visuals and illusions. And of course, another essential source is Cyril Mango, whose works on the Byzantine Empire are widely recognized and often referenced. He essentially compiled an encyclopedia of the Byzantine period. These three books are my main references for this project. Let's begin with the first hill, Sarayburnu. It includes Hagia Sophia, the old place, and later, Topkapı Palace. This hill was the center of political power. Rulers, maybe we can say that the sultans, rulers, and emperors all governed from here. So symbolically, this hill clearly corresponds to the sun, a planet of rulership, visibility, and central authority, of course. In fact, many of the most important places or palaces and administrative centers are located here, and we can very clearly associate this hill with the sun. As you know, in astrology, the sun represents centrality, leadership, and authority. The second hill is where Çemberli Taş and the old Forum of Constantine are located. Yeah. And this was the communication hub of the city, and it was where people gathered and markets were set up and ideas were exchanged. Naturally, this aligns with Mercury, the planet of communication and trade. And there is even a historical link here to Caduceus of Hermes, the stuff associated with Mercury. If you want to gain more details, check out my latest article in our Timelords Magazine. And the third hill is home to the Süleymaniye Mosque. Historically, it was tied to the city's water system, brings life to the area. And later it became a center of learning, healing, and philosophy through Mimar Sinan's masterpiece. Mimar Sinan is, by far the best architecture in our history. So this hill resonates with Jupiter, the planet of wisdom, health, and blessing. So it's no surprise that this hill corresponds to Jupiter, because in agricultural societies, people pray to Jupiter for water, for rain and blessing. The god of Zeus. Zeus represents Jupiter. That's why we can say that Jupiter Jupiter is related to this area. And the fourth hill is Fatih, named after Sultan Mehmet the Conqueror. Its very name means the conqueror, and this area was connected to warriors even during the Byzantine era. It holds a strong Mars energy, initiative, battle and leadership. And fun fact, Sultan Mehmet's sun and rising sign were both in Aries and ruled by the planet, Mars. And the name Fatih comes from Sultan Mehmet the Conqueror. The word Fatih means conqueror in Arabic, someone who takes over a place through battle and bravery. Even more interestingly, during the first solar eclipse after the conquest of Istanbul, Mars entered 0 degree of Leo. A degree, symbolizing the start of a royal. So from every angle, historical, symbolic, astrological, this hill clearly embodies the energy of Mars. And the fifth hill is symbolically associated with Saturn, mainly because this area contains some of the most well-preserved neighborhoods in all of Istanbul's history. Preserving things, associated with the nature of Saturn, of course. So this hill includes the Yavuz Sultan Selim Mosque, and it was built in honor of a caliph, not a king. It's really important because the sun represents kings, but it represents religions, authority, and seriousness and structure. So this hill corresponds to Saturn. And the sixth hill is Edirne Kapı, home to the Mihrimah Sultan Mosque. Here we find beautifully moon symbolism because Mihrimah means sun and Mah means the moon. So exciting, I know that, because the mosque's soft, protective design, and its feminine energy all point to the moon, nurturing, emotional, and connected to the people. Mihrimah Sultan was a woman, of course, and women, represent the moon. And finally, the seventh hill is Koca Mustafa Pasha, called Pisamatia in Byzantine time. Pisamatia, a Greek word meaning sandy area. It refers to the shoreline region near the Sea of Marmara, filled with sandy terrain. And this imagery energy rising from the sea clearly evokes, Aphrodite or Venus, who was born from the sea. And this area was not known for grand monuments, but for everyday life and communication or community, It reflects beauty, peace, and social harmony, clearly resonating with Venus, the planet of love and balance and harmony, we can say that. Of course, these are interpretations derived, from historical sources. They are educated assumptions, not absolutes. But what do they mean in terms of direction and placement? That's what we will begin to explore next. Now, if you look at a map of the historic peninsula, something fascinating emerges. You'll notice that the sun and the moon hills align along a kind of light axis, like a ley line, cutting across the city. And also Mercury, just like in Ptolemy's system, sits at the center. On the east side, we find Saturn. On the west side, we find Mars. To the north is Jupiter and the south is Venus. This layout mirrors Ptolemy's planetary direction model perfectly. You can see the east Saturn, west Mars, north Jupiter, and south Venus. Even the gender symbolism lines up. The right side of the map is dominated by masculine planets. You can see the Sun, Saturn, and Jupiter. The left side holds the feminine ones, the Moon, Mars, and Venus. So, what does all this mean? It shows us that Istanbul's geography may not have been just practical or political. It may have followed a cosmic blueprint. And I've written an article, guys, published in Timelords Magazine, where you can find all the in-depth material. I truly believe this symbolic city plan was not a coincidence. So now I turn it to you, and what do you think of this issue? What do you think about this issue? And how about these connections? Could the architecture and geography of Istanbul have been shaped with planetary symbolism in mind? Do you have any ideas or observations you'd like to share? I look forward to hearing from you. Your ideas, of course, and thank you so much for listening. And I'd like to extend my heartfelt thanks to everyone who contribute to the Time Lords publication, especially dear Camilla, and especially our queen Julia Simas. Thank you so much.